The house felt unnaturally quiet once the car pulled out of the driveway. The soft rumble of Lena's parents' SUV disappeared down the street, and with it, the last thread of structure and supervision. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed over her chest, watching until the tail lights vanished. The sun was just beginning to dip behind the trees, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. Behind her, Ethan dropped his backpack beside the coat rack. 2 weeks, he said, stretching his arms with a half-smirk. Just you and me. You ready for it? Lena turned slowly, arching an eyebrow. It's not a vacation, she said. You're here to house sit. I'm supposed to be studying. Ethan gave a lazy shrug. Fair enough. I'll stay out of your way. But Lena already knew that wouldn't be true. Ethan had never been the stay-out-of-the-way type. They weren't blood relatives, just connected through a marriage no one talked about anymore. When they were younger, they'd shared summer barbecues and awkward family reunions. Now, at 19, Lena was quiet and deliberate, living by routines and expectations. Ethan, at 21, was effortless in his movements, with a self-assuredness that unsettled her more than she wanted to admit. She tried not to look at how different he was now. Broader shoulders, a strong jawline, a calm confidence that made silence feel full instead of empty. As the sun dipped lower, Lena busied herself in the kitchen, half listening to the news humming from the living room. She prepared a simple dinner: grilled chicken, rice, and steamed vegetables. Her mom had left a detailed meal plan taped to the fridge door, and following it gave her a sense of control. Ethan leaned against the counter, watching her work. You always cook like this? Like what? She asked without looking up. Like you're trying to impress someone. Lena's hand froze over the rice pot. I'm not. He smiled and opened the fridge, pulling out a soda. Just saying. You don't have to play house with me. That night, they sat at opposite ends of the couch, plates balanced on their laps, watching an old movie they both half remembered. Lena found herself glancing at him during the quiet scenes, studying the curve of his jaw, the casual way he held his fork, the scar near his eyebrow she didn't remember from before. She caught herself and looked away. Jake wouldn't like this, she thought. But Jake hadn't called since Monday. She texted him before bed. Good night, miss you. No reply. The next morning brought a gray sky and heavy rain. Lena sat at the dining room table with her textbooks spread out, trying to concentrate. She could hear Ethan in the garage, hammering something, the rhythmic pounding echoing through the walls. It annoyed her at first until it didn't. By lunch, her focus had dissolved. She wandered to the garage, leaning in the doorway. What are you even doing? Ethan was shirtless, covered in a light sheen of sweat, sawing through a piece of old wood. He looked up, wiping his brow. Your mom's shelf was falling apart. Figured I'd fix it. You could have told me. He grinned. Would you have helped? Lena hesitated. Probably not. I figured. She handed him a glass of lemonade without a word. Their fingers brushed. That moment was too long. He looked at her with a glance that didn't mean to say anything, but did. Lena pulled back. You should put a shirt on, she said. Ethan just smiled and took a sip of the lemonade. That evening, the rain deepened into a storm. Thunder rumbled through the house, rattling the windows. The lights flickered once, then went out entirely. Lena lit candles from the emergency drawer. She found Ethan in the living room, already arranging flashlights on the table. Their phones had enough charge, but the darkness was thick and complete. Looks like a proper blackout, he said, settling onto the floor beside the coffee table. Lena joined him, hugging her knees. Kind of creepy without the lights. Kind of nice, he said. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the rain. Lena's mind wandered. She tried to think about her exams, about Jake, about anything that would ground her. But the silence was too full. Do you ever feel like people only see what they want from you? Ethan's voice was low, almost lost beneath the thunder. Lena looked over. What do you mean? He stared into the candlelight. Back home, I'm the guy who doesn't commit. The guy who's just passing through. But sometimes I wonder if I ever had a real shot at being more than that. His words hung in the air. Lena shifted closer, unsure why. I don't know, she said softly. I think people see what we let them. Ethan turned to her then, eyes searching. What do you let people see, Lena? The question struck something deep. She swallowed. The version that won't disappoint anyone. Another roll of thunder. Outside, the wind howled. He reached out, just a light touch on her arm, but it sent a shock through her skin. She didn't move away. You're not disappointing me, he whispered. She should have stood. Should have laughed it off. But she didn't. Instead, she whispered, I should check the back door. She stood abruptly, heart pounding, and left the room without looking back. That night, she lay in bed wide awake, staring at the ceiling. Rain pattered against the window. Her phone buzzed. Jake. Sorry, busy day. Talk tomorrow. Lena stared at the message for a long time before locking the screen. She turned onto her side, pulling the blanket tighter. Downstairs, she thought she heard Ethan moving through the kitchen, opening the fridge, footsteps soft but deliberate. A presence that lingered even when she couldn't see it. She closed her eyes. Tomorrow, she told herself. Tomorrow, she would be normal again. But something irreversible had already begun. Lena awoke to pale morning light filtering through her curtains. The storm had passed, but the clouds lingered like a warning. Her room smelled faintly of candle wax and rain-soaked wood. She lay still, the remnants of last night's conversation looping in her mind. Ethan's words, his touch, the way her breath caught when he looked at her. None of it made sense in the daylight. And yet, none of it felt like a dream. She dressed quickly, pulling on an oversized sweater and leggings, tying her hair into a loose knot. The house was quiet. Too quiet. In the kitchen, she found Ethan at the stove, flipping pancakes. He was wearing a t-shirt now, but it didn't matter. The memory of his bare skin, his closeness, was burned into her thoughts like the scent of smoke after a fire. Morning, he said, not looking at her. She grabbed a glass of water. You're cooking? I figured we needed something warm after last night. He nodded toward the window, where gray clouds clung stubbornly to the sky. Besides, I was up. Lena nodded and sat at the table. Her fingers tapped nervously on the surface. About last night. Ethan cut her off. It didn't mean anything. I was just talking. She blinked, unsure if that disappointed or relieved her.
Right.
Of course. He brought a plate to the table, then slid into the seat across from her. I don't want to make things weird. Too late, she said without thinking. His eyes flicked up. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then Lena looked away.
Sorry.
That was rude. No, he said. You're right. They ate in silence, each fork scrape and bite louder than it should have been. Something had changed. The air was different now, heavier, unpredictable. By afternoon, they had drifted into separate corners of the house. Lena retreated to her room, opening her textbooks, pretending to study. The words blurred, indistinct and irrelevant. Jake still hadn't called. She checked her phone repeatedly, flipping between apps, rereading their last conversation, looking for something to hold on to. He had promised to call that week. But all she had was a 3-word apology and silence. She tossed the phone onto her bed and stood. She needed distraction. Downstairs, Ethan had the garage door open, sunlight streaking across the concrete. He was working again, sanding a chair leg with focused intensity. Music played low from his phone, bluesy, slow, unfamiliar. Lena hovered in the doorway. He looked up. Need something? I was bored, she said, then regretted the honesty. Thought I'd see what you were doing. Fixing things, he said. It helps me think.
About what?
He paused, dust clinging to his forearms. About where I'm going next. What I'm doing with my life. The usual existential stuff. Lena stepped inside. Do you ever think about staying in one place? He set the sander down. All the time. She leaned against the wall, watching him. Then why don't you? Ethan wiped his hands on a rag. Because places get complicated. People expect things. And I've never been good at expectations. Lena looked at the chair. Looks like you're doing fine here. He smiled, but there was sadness behind it. You're not like them, he said. You make everything look easy, but I know it's not. Her breath caught. She looked away, unsure how to respond. I'm not trying to mess with you, Lena, he added. I swear. She shook her head. It's not that. It's just, I'm not used to people seeing through me. He stepped closer. I think you want to be seen more than you admit. They were inches apart now. Her heartbeat quickened. Don't, she whispered, but didn't move. Ethan studied her face. Tell me to stop and I will. Lena closed her eyes. I have a boyfriend. I know. For a moment, the silence returned, but it was charged, alive with what could happen, what shouldn't. Then Ethan stepped back. Right, he said. I'll finish this up. Dinner's on you tonight. She exhaled, shaky, and nodded, retreating without another word. That evening, she cooked in silence. Chopping vegetables felt mechanical, a distraction from the knot in her chest. She glanced at her phone again. Still no message from Jake. She imagined what she would say if he called. Could she tell him the truth?
No.
There was nothing to confess.
Yet.
Ethan joined her, humming some tune she didn't recognize. His energy had shifted, lighter, distant. Did I mess everything up? He asked as he set the table. Lena hesitated.
No.
But I think we're both standing on a line. Ethan's eyes met hers. And we're pretending we don't want to cross it? She didn't answer. That night, they watched another movie, sitting closer than before, though not touching. Every time their hands moved, her breath hitched. Every laugh felt like a secret. She thought about Jake. But Jake wasn't here. When the credits rolled, Ethan stood and stretched. Good night, Lena. She looked up at him. Night. He turned toward the stairs, but paused. You're not what I expected, he said over his shoulder. Lena's voice was barely audible. Neither are you. Then he disappeared down the hallway, leaving Lena alone in the flickering glow of the TV. She didn't sleep easily that night. And somewhere in the silence of her room, she knew the fracture had already begun. All it needed now was pressure. The days that followed settled into a rhythm, quiet, tense, filled with glances too long and silences too loud. The line they had danced around now loomed between them like a live wire, crackling, visible, waiting to be crossed. Lena woke early on Thursday, light spilling across her sheets. The house was silent. She lay still for a while, staring at the ceiling, letting her thoughts swirl. Guilt pressed into her chest like a stone. Guilt for the feelings she hadn't confessed, for the thoughts she hadn't stopped. Jake hadn't called. For days. For empty, echoing days. Her phone sat untouched on the nightstand. Downstairs, she found Ethan on the back porch, barefoot, sipping coffee. The air was cool, damp with morning dew. Mist hovered above the lawn like a held breath. He didn't look at her when she stepped outside. Couldn't sleep? No, she said, folding her arms. You? Same. They stood in silence for a moment, the kind that had become common between them. Not uncomfortable, just full. Lena leaned against the railing. It's weird how quickly this place stops feeling like home. Ethan glanced sideways. Maybe it's not the house that's changing. She turned to him, expression guarded. What do you mean? I mean, he said slowly, maybe you're changing. Lena's throat tightened. And that's bad. He shook his head. No. But change has a cost. She looked away, focusing on the fog, the quiet, anything but him. I didn't ask for this. I know, he said. But you didn't stop it either. That afternoon, while folding laundry in the living room, her phone finally buzzed. Jake. Hey, sorry. Bin slammed. You okay? The words felt hollow. She stared at them, then slowly typed. I'm fine. Just busy too. No heart. No question. No anger. Ethan passed behind her, carrying a stack of firewood. He paused, glancing at the screen. You gonna tell him? He asked. Lena's hand tightened around the phone. There's nothing to tell. Ethan's expression darkened, but he said nothing. That night, they cooked dinner together, chicken again, sautéed vegetables, wine her mother had left untouched. It was the kind of domestic moment that should have felt ordinary, but everything now throbbed with tension, like a note held too long in a quiet room. Afterward, they sat on the living room floor, the empty wine bottle between them. Ethan leaned back against the couch, his voice low. You ever think about what would happen if no one found out? Lena didn't answer immediately. I mean, he continued, just one moment. One truth no one ever had to know. She turned to him slowly. That's not how life works. He smiled faintly. Maybe not. But some moments feel like they belong to no one else. The wine had made her head light, her thoughts foggy. Why me? She asked suddenly. Why not anyone else? He didn't flinch. Because you see me. Because when you look at me, it's not through expectations or assumptions. You just see. Her heart pounded. You shouldn't say things like that, she whispered. But I mean them. She looked down. I'm scared of what happens if I let this go any further. And I'm scared of what happens if we don't. The words hung between them. Then Ethan reached out, slow, hesitant. His hand brushed hers barely. She didn't pull away. Her fingers curled into his, tentative at first, then certain. I don't want to be someone else's regret, she said. He looked at her, eyes soft. You won't be. And then, without fanfare, without hesitation, he leaned in. Their lips met gently, a question and an answer in the same breath. Lena froze, heart hammering. But when he pulled back to search her face, she closed the gap again. This kiss was different. It wasn't desperate or explosive. It was slow, careful, a dam finally giving way. They kissed until time disappeared, until the quiet between them became unbearable. Lena pulled away, breathless. I shouldn't have, she said, standing too quickly. You did, he replied, voice low. She backed toward the stairs. I need space. Ethan remained on the floor, watching her, his expression unreadable. Take it. In her room, she pressed her back to the door, trembling. Her phone buzzed again. Jake, miss you. Call when you can. Tears welled in her eyes. She didn't respond. She crawled into bed fully clothed, staring at the ceiling, tasting Ethan's kiss still on her lips. She had crossed the line. Now there was no pretending. The morning would demand answers. And nothing would ever be the same.